Hey guys, it's Ronnie, and I'm still at Kumoricon. And now I am going to speak with a gentleman known as J. Michael Tatum.
Hello.
And if you don't know him, then you probably haven't watched a lot of anime or anything like that in the last decade. And so you've done. Well, first off, thanks for meeting with me.
No problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So you've done the gambit of characters from Dragon Ball to
I think it's up to 230 something characters
wow,
I've been.
really?
Yeah, it kind of blows my mind. It doesn't feel like I've been doing this that long, but I guess I have.
How long have you been doing this now?
About 15 years.
Okay, that's right.
Give or take.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I love it. It still doesn't. Time just flies when you're doing this kind of stuff. It's just fun. So yeah, 230 some odd characters. I'm like, wow. And they're all up here. They're all in my head. It's a very crowded space.
So let's start with the age-old cookie-cutter question. Why did you go into voice acting?
I was tricked into it.
Wow, okay. That's a new one.
It's kind of a long story. I could kind of parse it down. But I grew up as an actor. I was a stage actor. I started about 9 years old. I fell in love with it and pursued stage for a long time. And then when I was in my early 20s, I got out of it because it's hard to make a living as an actor, especially as a stage actor, God knows. And so I had a whole other career. I was a marketer and account manager rather for an advertising firm. And that was my adult responsible job. And then I knew some people that worked at Funimation because I was an anime fan and lived in town where Funimation lived and grew. And so I thought, well, that's cool. And but had no aspirations of getting back into acting because I felt, oh no, that's another time, a dream, it's long dead. And a buddy of mine that was a director for them called me up one day. I've known him for several years, and he said, hey, do you want to come in on an audition for this role? It's Rikichi in Samurai 7. And I thought, oh, well, that sounds cool. I love the movie that series would be based on. And, but I just felt, no. So I begged off it. And fortunately, he wouldn't take no for an answer. So he kept hounding me for about a week. And then finally said, look, just come in. It's actually better if you suck because then, I can just prove to my line producer why I keep hiring the same actors. So you can be the example. And I was like, well, I can do that. I can come in and I can blow it. And that, we're happy? Okay. So I did. And it was like a 4-hour-long audition, which is exceptionally rare. And when we were done, I thought, I was signing some papers, NDAs. I thought I didn't read them very closely. My big mistake. And I kind of glibly said, like, how do you people at Funimation get anything done if it takes you 4 hours to audition every single part? And Chris Bevins, the director, my friend, was like, no, it took 5 minutes. We actually just recorded the first 6 episodes with you in that role, and you just signed an acting contract, so welcome. And I was like, what? So that's how I became an actor, and then 15 years later, it's just...
And now you're one of the most prominent voice actors.
Yeah. So to anyone that wants to get into voice acting, my answer is just to follow my example and just don't do anything. And say no when they do come to you, and then just wait to be tricked. That's I teach a workshop.
So you wouldn't give it up now, though? I mean...
Oh, no. God, no. I love it. There's nothing like it in the world. It's such a fun. I love acting, and this is... what I've learned with voice acting is it's tremendous fun because, one, it's less of a time commitment for an actor because, if you're doing stage work, you're talking weeks of rehearsal and then, however long the run is, you really have to... Yeah, exactly. And so it's a huge time commitment first. Not always a lot of money. Not always enough to live on. And with film work, it's similar, and film work is more sporadic because the competition is so stiff. But and also in film and stage work, because it's so very much based on, especially film, it's based on what you look like more than anything else. As an actor, you tend to get pigeonholed into certain types of roles because I'm tall and kind of lantern-jawed, so I'd play like a cop or a military man or a lawyer or something like that. But, as an actor, you want to explore your range. Like, well, I could do this. I could play Hamlet. I could play, King Lear. I could do all this. But, directors will be like, no, you're this, that, the other. We love you. But no, voice acting, you get to explore more of your range because whatever your voice can do, they don't care what you look like or how you dress. Like, I've done sessions in my pajamas. So there's no time in the makeup chair. It's wonderful.
That's how you end up with things like, Bob's Burgers and Archer having the same voice.
Exactly.
It still works.
So voice acting, if you love acting, voice acting is a really good way to kind of explore your instrument because you do get a chance to. You have there's no limit to the roles you can play. If your voice can go there, they don't care physically what you look like. it's very liberating.
So have you ever thought about maybe going back to doing actual acting at all, or?
Yeah, I'd love to get back on stage, and I'd like to. I think I'd have to retire from voice acting for a season or two to do it, because it's the time commitment, wouldn't, especially now with simuldubs. You know, like actors basically, if we work for Funimation, you have to sort of be on call. Because week to week you don't know how much time you're going to be needed for, so you kind of have to sign off for the whole season and be like, I'm going to be your way, or I'm going to be here, so they'll cast you. And you know, in 1 week maybe 19 hours worth of recording they need you for, which is great, and then the next week might be 1 hour, depending on the line count that comes down the wire. So it's a bit of a crapshoot, but it takes, you know, it's hard to balance that with the demands of a stage play, schedule rehearsals, because they can get pretty, and now the stage industry has changed a lot, where you tend to, it used to be that you would go in and audition for specific roles in specific productions, and now theater companies want you to audition for an entire season and have like a repertoire of actors that they've already kind of approved through an early audition process. So you might be asked to come and audition in January, but not be cast in anything for that theater company until March of the following year. So it's harder, it's really difficult to kind of make it all align. It's a lot of plate spinning. So if I wanted to pursue stage acting or even film acting again, I would have to take a break from voice acting for a little while.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm not ready to do that yet.
I've also noticed that you've done quite a bit of writing.
Yeah.
Mostly screen adaptations. Is that something you like doing a lot, or?
I really do. I don't do it anymore, sadly. Earlier this year, things just kind of changed at the studio, and it just was no longer viable for me to continue writing. So as much as I loved it, I don't at the current time. I write my own stuff now. So who knows? Yeah, but I do love writing. I think my experience as a writer, and I spent some time, excuse me, in the director's chair as well for a little while there in the early days. And I think getting to do all of that really helped me explore my acting chops, you know, as a writer. Because as a writer, especially when you're doing a dub adaptation, you kind of have to play all the characters while you're writing it, because you have to vocalize to make sure this line can be said in one breath or however long the timing you have. So it's a great practice, you know, to do it. So I think writing is almost single-handedly responsible for how fast I am in the booth as an actor, and which contributes to how I get work, because directors want to use actors they know are quick, good, and low hassle. So writing was a huge part of how I discovered how to do all that.
Okay. Yeah. So as you said, you've played 230
something like that. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
No.
Nobody ever does.
It's hard. It's so hard, because you get it's kind of, actors are a little crazy. I think you get really invested in your characters, certainly some of them, and you know, become so much a part of you that you change a little bit as a person after you've played them, because they just become a permanent feature of your psyche after that. So it's hard. It's like a whole family of people in your head that are very real to me. And so picking a favorite's like, you know, if I were like, oh, this character, I would have like 329 characters in my head the next day going, you're a bastard. Why did you pick me? You know, so I'm like, I don't need that stress. Yeah. But I certainly have a handful of characters that I think were the most challenging and the most memorable for me. I think Okabe from Steins Gate is definitely one, because that was a deeply emotional journey. Sebastian, of course, I love, because I love doing that voice, and it's super easy work, because Sebastian's kind of like, I don't want to suggest he's the least interesting character in the show, because he's certainly not, but he's the character that nothing happens to. He's like the stable anchor, you know, it's all about CL, and he's just kind of there to be suave and capable, and it's great. I'm like, oh, this is an easy role. I don't have to go through any emotional journey. I'm kind of the nice constant, which is nice and relaxing, and it's a really fun voice to do. But like, I love Lawrence from Spice and Wolf, you know, because I just love that show. And, there's tons. See how I just go off and go this rabbit hole of this one.
Basically, it's all of them.
Pretty much.
Them all.
That's true.
Is there a character that you haven't done yet, or that you just really want to do, or maybe like a type of character that you haven't done? And
There's lots. I used to think about it a lot. I'm like, oh, I want to play this character and stuff. But I've learned in the past years, in the past decade especially, like, I try not to think about that. I try to be very zen about it, because you go into audition, and which is 90% of the job. That's an actor's job, is to interview every day for the job you want, and the going ratio for most of us is about, out of every 100 auditions you do, you might get one part. So it's a pretty it's a if when you start out and you're only getting 1 or 2 auditions, you think I have to win these, and you don't. It's heartbreaking, you know. But after 100 a week or 100 a month, rather, I should say, it's kind of like, man, you know, you forget half the roles you auditioned for because you never hear from them again. So I try to stay away from what's coming down the wire because I don't want to know, because odds are I'm not going to get it, and I don't want to be heartbroken. So I'm just the role I really want to do is whatever my next role is.
Okay. That's a good answer.
It's the most psychologically healthy way to go about it, because the business is so filled with rejection. I mean, it's anyone, especially young actors that get into it for the first time. There's just no way to prepare yourself for how often you just hear no or hear nothing. You know, like, so you just have to get to a point where you just go in and you treat an audition like you just assume you're not going to get it, but you do it like the job is to audition, and then every now and again it creates a little more work for you, and then it's fun. But man, if you fall in love with a character and you don't get it, it can really mess with your ability to, let's say you don't get that character that you loved, but then someone casts you in this show as this character that you weren't as invested in for whatever reason because you were so hyper-focused on getting this part, and it will mess with your ability to do justice to that part because you're so bent out of shape for not getting, you know, that role.
Okay.
So I just try to stay very zen about it and be like, cool, whatever, let's see what happens. It took years to get there. In the early days, I would gnash my teeth and cry, like, I didn't get that part, and I was like, I can't do this to myself anymore. So I learned over time to just kind of let it go and just go in, and, you know, and plus if I love a character, chances are if I don't get it, one of my friends will, and I don't want to be like, damn you, Ian. Or damn you, Sabbath, you know, because they're my friends. And I've discovered if I really love a character, I don't really care who plays them, as long as whoever it is does it justice. And if that's me, awesome. If it's not, awesome. Nice.
Well, I want to thank you very much for speaking with me. I do appreciate it. You guys need to check him out. His name is J. Michael Tatum. You can find him in things like Attack on Titan, Black Butler. I mean, now I'm freezing out because you've done
tons and tons. My Hero Academia. That's
My Hero Academia just out.
Oh God, Steins Gate.
Do you have anything else coming out we should know about? Or let me guess. The term is going to be NDA.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Of course, there'll be more My Hero coming down the wire at some point soon, and then presumably more Attack on Titan down the way. Because my character is still alive. One of the few still alive from the first season. And like tons of other stuff we're working on. And so now, if I can just promote a little podcast I do now with my good friend Jamie Markey. She and I love each other dearly because we bonded over our love of ghost stories. And so we started a ghost story podcast called Ghoul Intentions, where subscribers are encouraged to submit your own personal ghost stories, where we will kind of adapt them to our own unique storytelling styles and do them on the podcast. So,
wow,
yeah,
okay.
It's really fun.
Ghoul Intentions.
Ghoul Intentions.
I like that name.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I like that. All right,
so, thank you so much.
So make sure you check that out. His name is J. Michael Tatum, and if you don't watch anime, then why are you watching this?
yeah. Go watch anime.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
Appreciate it.